This is Michael Woodward, and this is Season 2, Episode 12 of the Jumblethink Podcast.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Jumblethink Podcast. We explore the ideas and dreams behind some of the leading entrepreneurs from around the world. Along the way, we will give you some tips and ideas of how you can chase your own big ideas and dreams and change the world around you. Our guest on today's episode is Molly Montgomery. More about Molly in a moment. On Thursday's episode, I'm going to give you some thoughts and insights on how culture impacts our big ideas and dreams. I'm also going to share how we can determine if we need to go with the flow of culture or go against culture to make our dreams and ideas a reality. So make sure to check out this Thursday's episode all about culture and ideas. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to make sure you know where you can find us. You can find us in all of your favorite places to listen to podcasts. Places like Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, and SoundCloud. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. As always, swing on over to jumblethink.com/podcast to find links to many of the best places to connect. Don't forget to find us on your favorite places to listen to podcasts and click on that subscribe or follow button so you'll never miss another great episode of the Jumblethink Podcast. Now let's jump into today's episode. Hey there, welcome to today's episode of the Jumblethink Podcast. My name is Michael Woodward, and I am your host. Super excited about today's guest. Her name is Molly Montgomery. Let's take a moment to learn a little bit more about Molly.
So my name is Molly Montgomery. I'm the founder of Founders Haven, and also owner of a consulting practice called Ascension Consulting, and a co-founder and president of a health and beauty company that's just about to get launched here. So in the very early stages. I'm generally speaking, I'm a startup growth strategist and a mentor to high-performing founders and visionary leaders. So Founders Haven is a community for founders of high growth businesses. And it's a place for founders to go for connection and resources to support them through the journey of being a founder of a high growth company and all the pressure and excitement and roller coaster ride that it is. One thing that I've seen for the almost 15 years now of advising companies of all different sizes, connecting to the CEO/founders of the businesses and the critical moments, the decisions that are made as the business grows, really connecting to the personal journey that people are going through has been a true passion of mine. So Founders Haven is a culmination of all of everything that's gone on in the one-on-one conversations and the work that I do on the advisory side, the consulting side of, okay, let's really pull out the personal side of what people are going through and help support them more in that. And then the consulting practice is growth strategy and CFO services for high growth startups. When did I know that this was what I wanted to do? That's been an interesting journey. It has taken all sorts of iterations to figure it out. When I first went off to college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I started off with nursing, and that just did not work. I ended up failing out of college and had to reassess my whole life and figure out what do I want to do? What am I good at? What is my path? And so through this whole process of trying to figure that out, I ended up taking some business classes and got into accounting. And for whatever reason, accounting just clicked really well for me, which is funny because I know it's really painful for a lot of people. But I ended up getting a degree in accounting and went into became a CPA and just started advising, working for some of the big accounting firms in public accounting, and spent about 12 years in that world and did a lot of forensic and litigation support work. And just through that journey, seeing what companies are going through when it's a little bit further on in the process, a little kind of late in the game to be able to help with what's going on in the company. just seeing all the things that had gone wrong after they'd already happened, I really started to find a passion for wanting to help companies earlier on in the process, rather than being the one at the end of the game, at the end of the on the transaction, when the transaction is coming into play, as far as they're trying to sell the company, or something horrible has gone wrong, or there's fraud, or some sort of mess that's getting cleaned up. Just wanting to go in and help sooner in the process. So that's where the consulting practice, where my consulting business came into play. I finally stepped away and had the entrepreneurial bug myself and ventured off on my own and launched this consulting practice. And that's molded into realizing my true passion is on the personal side of connecting to what founders are going through as they scale their company. So it's been an iteration of leveraging the skills and the experience that I have, while also tapping into, where do I find my joy? What is my purpose here? So it's me connecting to my purpose and finding where those two cross. A story of how I found purpose and significance, or how I find purpose and significance in what I do, is in connecting to the purpose behind what my clients are doing, and knowing that, or finding ways to help them succeed in finding joy and reaching their purpose in what they're doing. We're all in this together, and that may sound cliche, but it's so deeply true of how can we support each other in this journey of what we're up to in life. What we're all looking for, some kind of connection to joy. We all have our own definition of success, and really helping people connect to that and connect to their greatest potential while they're going through that process, helping alleviate the pressure that comes along with taking on something so grand. I mean, those moments where I find that connection with my clients, that's what fuels me. It really fuels me. And seeing that they're knowing that people are creating something that potentially is going to impact the world, whatever that looks like, impact the community, impact their clients. In the technology world, just knowing that there's innovation and inventions that are coming to life. The limit of whether or not that's truly going to happen, it is limited by the personal limits of the people that are creating it. So if I can help people shift into a place that helps bring their creation to life, to where it's ultimately going to be impacting others, that to me is the ultimate purpose for me being here. So I find a lot of joy in that. Why is my work significant, and why does it matter? And I think the purpose behind why I'm doing it is really helps explain that. It's connecting back to, if I can help a company get out of the first couple years of trying to figure things out, to where it's truly connected to the market and the technology or the product or the service that is helping the community or the market, the purpose for that company existing. If I can help in any way bring that to life and make that connection, I see that impacting the world. It may sound so just up in the clouds, kind of dreamy, but I truly am driven by that purpose is, there's an importance behind it. And I feel like the experience that I've been in, the career capital that I've built up, if I can use that to help others reach their level of success, I feel a level of responsibility in a way for really taking that on. So there's importance behind it. It's so needed. Challenge that I'm working to overcome in my business is learning to enjoy, to fall in love with the chaos. There's always a certain level of chaos in the world of entrepreneurship and founding a company. There's always a level of uncertainty. And as things grow, as things scale, as more people get hired, as more vendors are involved, as the sales, the number of customers start to grow and the reach starts to grow. There's this whole new level of uncertainty and challenges and a certain level of chaos in the midst of what you're creating that I'm just learning how to take it all in stride, how to step above it and observe it and not be swept away by it. So as I'm helping my clients go through that growth process and through that journey in their world, I'm going through it as well. So it's always new challenges. The next big goal that I have, Founders Haven, is truly my purpose-driven passion that I feel it's here to stay, and it's such an important creative outlet for me of getting that off the ground and creating the community and bringing these resources to other founders at scale is a huge goal of mine. And simultaneously, I guess you could call me, I'm truly tapping into my entrepreneurial heart and that the creative side of who I am. The health and beauty company that we're launching it's really starting to take off, and that is, being a founder of an e-commerce company it's investor funded. There's massive purpose behind that. We've got a team of people that are just extraordinary people, and every day the entire team just blows my mind what we're creating, and everyone's showing up, and the commitment and the excitement and everything, the culture of what we're creating there coincides with what's going on with Founders Haven. Those two things are seeing them come to life is just beyond exciting. So two big goals of getting those off the ground and reaching on the milestones that we have this year for both of them is my focus.
We'll be right back with our interview with Molly Montgomery. We would love to hear how the Jumblethink podcast has impacted your journey of chasing your own big idea and dream. It's easy to do. Swing on over to jumblethink.com, click that contact button, drop us a little note, or find us on a social channel. Connect with us and drop us a little message. We can't wait to hear your stories. Now let's jump back into our interview with Molly Montgomery. I am super excited to have Molly Montgomery on the podcast. Molly, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing so great, Michael. Thank you for having me.
It's a privilege. I mean, just looking over what you've done and where you've come from and where you're going, it's truly inspirational.
Oh, thank you. It has been quite a journey.
I want to kick this off. You mentioned in your moments where you're telling a little bit of your story and your background that you had a journey that was unexpected. You expected to go into nursing and you end up not finding that to be what you really wanted to do. And you end up in the world of accounting and money and numbers and systems and all of the fun things that go with that. Tell us a little bit about that journey of discovering something that was unexpected that turned into passion.
Oh, it has been quite a ride and a lot of work, a lot of inner work, I will say, but so worth it. It has been worth every single breakdown, every single moment of what on earth am I doing with my life, every single moment of, I think this is it, not sure. Wow. So, I mean, I don't know where. I try to think back and figure out where did my desire to connect to my purpose come from? And where did my desire to find passion come from? Because I don't know if that's something that everybody just is born with. You just decide that that's what you want to do with your life. I was just so deeply driven by feeling like I wanted and needed to find what my purpose is. And so there was a point, and I think when I was in college, I was just in a place of there were several moments in college where I felt so disconnected. I just couldn't, I didn't have any drive. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And it was just this emptiness. I was going down this path of what what I felt like I was supposed to be doing. And so, okay, I go and I get a degree. And my family was perfectly open to. They wanted me to be happy. My parents just
Yeah.
wanted me
Yeah.
to be happy, and they wanted me to be successful. And they gave me the space to figure out what that was. And like I mentioned, when I failed out of college the first year, and I was kind of surprised at the way they responded, because I could tell it was, well, okay, if maybe college isn't your thing, maybe come home and we'll figure it out.
Right.
And I think there was part of me that realized I had the space to figure it out. I it really was up to me,
Yeah.
and I didn't have people saying, no, you have to go and do this. So I think that alone gave me a little bit of a push, a nudge of, huh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it almost seems
So
like it gave you some freedom there to not have limits.
yeah.
I think it's easy in the confines of supposed to, whether it's a burden of society, whether it's a burden of our parents, the expectations put on us instead of the expectations that we put on ourselves, even though those can be limiting too. That removing that burden was the freedom that you needed to get to where you needed to go.
Yes. They gave me freedom to fail, and it was so uncomfortable. It was so uncomfortable at the time. But yes, what to your point, and also, so been a constant process of reflecting and
Yeah.
assessing and refocusing and choosing, okay, I think this is it, and this is what I'm going to choose. So I wanted to, since I struggled a lot through high school, and I struggled my first year in college. And so my first goal was to figure out, what am I good at? That's
Wow.
really, it was as
Yeah.
simple as that, of what do I actually want to be doing? What am I good at? Because I really didn't have anything in my life that I felt like I was thriving in. Everything was just kind of there. So
Yeah.
I decided to try some business classes, and I thought, well, business finance sounds interesting. I've never done anything like it. And accounting just clicked. There was something about
Wow.
I don't know. I don't even know. I can't explain it. I've never been much of a numbers person, but it just clicked. So I went with an accounting degree. I thought, well, I can thrive in this. And so by the time I finished school, the last couple semesters, I was on dean's list, because I found something
Wow.
I was good at, and I learned how to focus. I learned how to study. I learned how to do all these different things of, okay, I'm going to go with this. So when I left school with an accounting degree, and I ended up, public accounting was just, I was fascinated by it.
Yeah.
I didn't, there was all the experience, the possibilities of what I would experience of going into it
Yeah.
was just fascinating to me. So I went down this path of, in public accounting, you're working with all different kinds of, every different industry you can imagine, companies of all sizes. I went into audit, which was a love-hate relationship. It was such an incredible experience, and it really helped me from a professional standpoint. It was like boot camp. It was business boot camp.
Wow. Wow.
Learning how businesses run, and intense deadlines, and shaping me into, just communicating, and just everything related to what it means to be a professional and how to run a business. I learned so much. So I got to a point where I learned all these different skill sets and saw everything related to business. And then I started to do the reflecting again of, I'm really not enjoying this. So what is my purpose? Because this is not it. So back to the self-reflection. And I ended up leaving the audit world, leaving that career, and did a first round of attempting entrepreneurship, and just went out and did kind of a little bit of everything. I
Yeah.
started an accounting practice. I was fascinated by real estate investing. Fitness was a huge passion of mine. So I went off and became a personal trainer. I got certified in that. So I was doing all these different things, trying to figure out entrepreneurship. And the one thing that I never learned how to do before I did that was I never learned how to sell. And so my
Hmm.
first round of entrepreneurship was mostly a focus of trying to figure out, what am I here for and how do I sell? Because I realized that's one thing you need to know
Right.
going into this world. So yeah, it's just been a journey of just trying to figure out all these different pieces. And I ended up going back into working for a big firm in public accounting. And that's when I got into the forensic and litigation world. And that was another just deeply fascinating, incredible experience that through that journey, that's when I really connected to this purpose of seeing all these other businesses that had their own vision of what they were off out to do and what they were creating and the impact they were out to make, and seeing all the messes that were happening and
Yeah.
the failures that were happening, and that's where I really connected to, my gosh, this is preventable. You
Yeah.
don't need to be in this place. And
Yeah.
I realized that's it. The whole journey that I've been down has been it so I could build up a deep level of experience and technical experience to go out and help companies much earlier in the process to help prevent some of that stuff,
Yeah.
some of those failures. So that's when I really started to feel it, of feeling that energy, feeling that was what filled me up. So that's when I started to think, there's joy in this. Like as I'm starting to create this thing, as it's starting to show up in my mind of what does this look like, feeling the excitement around it is what helped me realize, okay, I think there's a purpose here.
Yeah.
There's something to it.
Yeah.
So
You're talking, and I know that one of the things that you're really hitting on is creative flow, getting into that place. Some people call it the zone of genius. We hear about it all the time in our interviews with amazing entrepreneurs and business owners. But one of the things that's really sticking out to me is part of getting to that flow. What you were
mm,
saying is like being present, being, self-auditing yourself in a way, taking assessments, taking stock of where you are, how you're feeling, how you're enjoying what you're doing, and adjustments, and then going back and doing it again and adjusting. And it's this evolution of being present, being aware of what's going on, and then really making the steps to get into the flow. Is that fair? Is that kind of what you're saying there?
yes. And one of the things that I've realized for myself, this was a huge realization for me and
Yeah.
for my life, in finding alignment in back to what brings me joy, and why, when I was going down this path in the accounting world and spent all the time that I did in public accounting, and then when I started my consulting practice, I still felt this massive disconnect of the work that I was doing and the business that I was creating. It still didn't feel like it wasn't fulfilling, and there was still this major disconnect of, why am I still not enjoying this? This doesn't feel. It started to feel more like I was creating a job for myself.
Yeah.
And I realized I really started to tap into my creative side of who I am. And accounting is not creative. And I think that's how I got so fascinated by the forensic and litigation world, and why public accounting in general was so fascinating for me, was because of the intense, really tight deadlines and the amount of, with on the forensic side, of the creativity that's required, because there's so much that you don't know that you have to figure out and piece together. You create
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
And so it was a self discovery that I went through of, I am so much more creative than I was giving myself the space to be. And I started, when I was working in public accounting, I started blogging, I started writing, I started having this deep desire to speak and to coach and to present and to do these things that were so creative. And I started to realize, my gosh, I'm not in the right setting.
Yeah.
And so when I started my business and I started to understand who I am as a creator, I
Yeah.
realized the people that I was working with, the other founders that I was working with, founding a company and entrepreneurship in general, it's a creative endeavor. Even the most technical, in the technology space, the IT, the technical founders, even the most technical people, founding a company is a creative process. It's a creative endeavor. So understanding that and understanding who you are from the creative conversation really helps take proactive steps to open up the space to be that and to do that. So one thing I realized, I mean, you got to understand creativity, getting into that creative flow. Creative flow is it follows focus.
Yeah.
Focus is, it follows undistracted. Focus is undistracted concentration. That's the best way I can think to
Okay.
describe it. So
Yeah.
understanding that getting into these really deep creative flow moments, you've got to set yourself up to have undistracted time and undistracted concentration. So it's a practice of setting yourself up for that.
Early on, you said there's always been this driving force in your life to find purpose, your purpose.
Yes.
And I can relate to that. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs can really resonate with that. But there's a lot of people that just kind of seem to be drifting through life. Do you think it's because they've lost sight of purpose or lost sight of their self-value and why they're created to do amazing things? Even if it's a small thing, it's still amazing. Why do you think some people are so in tune with getting in touch with their creative flow or in touch with pursuing the things that are passionate that maybe only they can do, the small things or big things that can change the world? Why is it that some seem to really dive into that and that drives them, and others just seem to be okay with the status quo, okay with just same old every day, just surviving instead of thriving?
That's such an interesting question. And I truly believe we all have some level of some creative aspect within us.
Yeah.
And I think there's a couple different ways, pieces of the pie, pieces of that puzzle. One major piece of it, I really truly think, from everybody that I've worked with and from what I've seen, there's something about there's something about risk, willing to take risk and wanting to take risk, doing a risk assessment of the cost benefit analysis of, is it worth taking these risks, or
Yeah.
am I finding happiness in living this life this way? So I think there's some kind of risk assessment that people go through of, I want that and it's worth taking those risks. And then there's a fear element of,
Yeah.
is the fear louder? Is the fear taking over so much of our inner dialogue that the possibility of taking action isn't even within our periphery of, we can do certain things?
Right.
And self-doubt. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen in our childhood and as we're growing up, and that we learn, we hear all these external voices and all these things that happen that tell us, you can't do that, you're not good enough, you're not capable, you need to do this, you should be doing that, that just shapes our inner dialogue. So I think there's a lot of that people just get into a place of existing, okay, this is what I can do. And without even realizing how much possibility is truly out there and what we all are truly capable of. And then I also just think that there's nothing wrong with living a life of the status quo
Yeah.
if you find happiness in that place. Like tapping into what does make you happy. And if there's a level of some people just need a certain level of safety and security, and that's what the status quo brings. And so if you can find your happiness while also having that certainty in your life, that's okay too. But if you're willing to take on this life of, I mean, entrepreneurship is it is the most difficult.
Yeah,
It is
it
the
is.
most difficult thing you can put yourself through. And at the same time, the rewards are just so worth it if you can
Yeah.
if you can Yeah, if you're ready to put yourself through it.
As you've talked, one of the things that stood out to me about your story is you've been able to do what I think a lot of people don't realize they could do. And that's you've taken your experience and turned it into expertise. I think so often we look at our life situations, whether it's good or bad, and we go, okay, I'm moving forward. And we don't take awareness to the things of our past that we can use to become an expertise for the future. Can you share a little bit about why taking experiences and turning it into expertise can be really powerful in an entrepreneurial journey?
Oh, that is such an interesting question. Nobody has ever asked me this, and the most this has been such a challenging part of. I mean, that's been my creative process of figuring
Yeah.
that out. And I think there's a
Yeah.
couple key things that I went through to get to that place of. I think it started when I was trying to figure out how to sell and
Okay.
understanding the sales process of what is it that I have to offer? And what is it? How does that connect to the people that I want to be working with?
Yeah.
The because I could go and sell accounting services to pretty much anybody. And I wanted to
Right.
create a world of, I want to find who do I want to be working with? So it was this discovery process of, okay, if I could, I'm creating this myself. What does this look like? So understanding what I have to offer and what people want of the people that I want to be working with. And where does that come together? How can I find what value do I bring into their life, and what is it that they want and need, and how do I make that connection? So it was this a lot of conversations and discovering. It's just like I said, a discovery process of finding that match. So learning to sell was one piece, and through that discovered that's understanding what value do I have to bring, and so that's a lot of
Yeah.
self reflection of, okay, I've done a lot of different things here, so let me figure out
Yeah.
what does that look like. And
Well, just pausing there for a second, because I
yeah,
think that's really good. I think so often it's hard to self reflect because it's painful.
mm,
Um,
right,
how how did you navigate that of turning failures or troubles or self-doubt into successes instead of dwelling on them and let because it's easy to get into the dark place of entrepreneurship, and we talk about that a lot on this podcast, and
yeah,
that stems from a place of isolation a lot of times. But when you're assessing what you're doing and you're growing and you're evolving and you're doing exactly what we're talking about, turning experiences into expertise, how do you stay in a healthy place where you find that joy you mentioned about, where you find joy and enjoyment in chasing those dreams and ideas as you're evolving them and having the pain of the things that come along with being an entrepreneur?
yes, that's this is huge. And I will say, I remember one of the things that I carried a lot of. I don't know if the word, I was embarrassed about it or some level of shame around this. When I was in the public accounting world, I changed jobs every, gosh, 3 to 4 years. And in my professional community, the people who were more or less mentors to me, the traditional side of the profession was looking at me kind of judging me to a certain degree of, why do you keep changing jobs? You can't keep doing that because you're going to damage your resume. I mean, in
Right,
that
right.
world. So I had it in my mind of, I've somehow damaged myself because I've changed jobs too many times. And so when I left and started my consulting firm, I had this weight on my shoulders of kind of embarrassed about it. Like, I don't know what people are going to
Yeah.
think about this because I've changed jobs so many times. They're going to think something's wrong with me. I mean, this was like this inner voice that I had. And
Yeah.
and so those are the kind of things that we tell ourselves, or everybody's got some degree of something like that, like
Yeah. Yeah.
that you're telling yourself. And so it truly, I learned very early on, and it probably back to when I first started this reflection process when I failed out of college of it's not it's not a failure if you reflect and recover and just keep moving forward. It's a
Yeah.
lesson. That's all it is. There's no failures, they're just lessons. Other people might label it as a failure from their perspective because in their world it may be to them. But no, for you, it's just a lesson. So I started journaling. I've been journaling a lot, and I've worked with a lot of different coaches, and I've done listened to a lot of podcasts and just reading all the personal development world. And I mean, it's been very much a spiritual journey for me of getting to a place of reflecting and letting go, self-forgiveness, understanding, okay, this is, if I were to do it again, if I were to go through that again, which I don't want to do,
Right.
how would I do it differently? Or what did I do well?
Yeah.
Through that whole process, what did I do well? And bring that forward with me. And understanding what are my strengths. And so as I'm moving forward and as I'm choosing my path, the choices, the things that I say yes to and the things that I say no to, really getting clear on what I want to say yes to. So and practicing knowing what to say no to.
Yeah.
And then it just becomes more of a game.
Yeah. Now I kind of interrupted you there. Was there anything else that you wanted to share about how you can turn experience into expertise before we pivot here?
Yes. And so, okay. So then the other piece of that, to add to everything I just shared, I mean, that's been a big piece of turning my expertise into that passion of constantly reflecting on what do I really enjoy doing of all the things that I do, what fuels me. And it's funny because right before I made the final leap and left the last accounting firm that I was working for, we went through the firm, we had one of our annual retreats, and where the forensic litigation group for the whole firm, we all went to, I don't remember where it was. I think it was Chicago for our annual retreat, all the professionals that were part of it. Couple thousand people. But one of the things they had us do at the retreat is before going, they had us take the I don't know if you've heard the book, the StrengthsFinder. They had us take the StrengthsFinder assessment. Yeah. And so
such a good tool.
Yes. And one of the sessions at that retreat was our StrengthsFinder and learning about what are our strengths. And it was so fascinating to me because most of the people in the room had all of these typical accountant type of strengths, the very focused, numbered, I don't even know, just all these things that were not on mine. And my top 5 strengths were passion and purpose and happiness and community and this world grand vision of changing the world. Yeah. And it was this very, very creative, passion driven profile. And there was only one other person in the room that had a similar profile to mine. And that was the managing director of the entire forensic and litigation practice for the entire firm.
Wow.
And I remember when I started working for that firm, he was the one person that I truly looked up to and connected to. And I was just, it was such an interesting thing for me because that's when I realized I'm in the wrong room.
Yeah.
And so that's when I decided there's something to this. And so I carried that StrengthsFinder, those 5 strengths. Everything that I do now, I go back and I refer to that. And I think, are the actions that I'm taking leveraging these things? Because this is what fuels me. This is what gets me so excited when I'm doing things that allow me to use these strengths. So that's how it's kind of come together.
Yeah. And if you're listening and you haven't done the StrengthsFinder, I love it. It's sitting, I can see it from my desk as we're chatting here. I love it. I think it's one of the great tools in the arsenal of really investing in yourself to become the fullness of what you can be instead of focusing on the things you shouldn't be.
Yes. And it really helps tap into what your potential is. You hear a lot of
Yeah.
founders and entrepreneurs, and all these like life hacking, biohacking. I mean, truly all that stuff, we're all trying to tap into a certain level of potential that we can
Yeah.
feel is there. We're just trying to figure out what that is, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I want to pivot here and make sure that we talk about some exciting things that you're doing and you've got going on. You, of course, started a company called Ascension Consulting, and you've got the health and beauty brand that you're doing, which is awesome. But you've got this cool product that's about to launch called Founders Haven. What is it, and why do people need to know about it?
Yes, thank you. So Founders Haven is it's more of a community. So right now, website, there's going to be a lot of foundershaven.com. I'm going to be putting up some resources, everything that we've been talking here about creative flow, tapping into your potential, finding that joy as a founder as you're going through the intense world of growing, scaling a company. I mean, everything
Right.
from it's the stuff that I'm going to be putting out there is for early stage startups or entrepreneurs up to, I mean, if your company is doing 100 million in revenue and you're growing rapidly, these tools are just as useful, and if not more useful for you as well. So really the tapping into that, how to tap into that creative flow, getting into a deeply focused state in the midst of all the chaos and overwhelm, helping relieve overwhelm and anxiety and the stuff that comes up with all the challenges that we deal with. So, I mean, really, focus is the ultimate competitive advantage in the world that we're in.
Right.
So, yeah, foundershaven.com, and I'll have a really great focus tool that I'll be launching through there. So as that gets launched here close to the end of February, come on over and join that community. But yeah, that's Founders Haven.
You know, you work with a lot of startups, you work with a lot of entrepreneurs, you work with people who are down the road. And I think it's great to have a big idea. I think it's great to have a dream that you have and you want to chase it. But a lot of times those people going into it the first time, they're working against the tide. They're pushing against it, and there's a lot of pitfalls. There's a lot of simple things that they can do to overcome the obstacles that are coming. If they only knew that they were coming. Can you maybe share a couple of things that every person in their early state of entrepreneurship needs to know about that journey and how they can navigate the obstacles along the way?
Oh, absolutely. And it is, there's so much that happens. I would say a couple key things to really hone in on and just always check back with. I mean, kind of keeping it as what are the basics? Constantly checking back in with the basics. One thing I would say is finding a place of alignment within yourself, and you're always going to have to check back in with that, it's continually checking back in with yourself, of getting yourself back in alignment and moving forward from that place. And so that can mean so many different things, but if it's self-care, getting sleep, your eating habits, your relationships, taking care of yourself, taking a day off, doing whatever you need to do to take care of yourself in the midst of whatever is going on. And another thing is when you do that, that's what's going to help you constantly be connecting back in with your vision and what you
Yeah.
want to be creating. Because as we
Yeah.
move forward, you'll get into a lot of different conversations with people. You start comparing yourself to competitors. You start hearing all these other people telling you, you should do this, you should do that. You're the one that's creating it. So pay attention to all of that. Use it as information and data so that when
Yeah.
you can get back into that place of checking back in with, okay, what do you want? What does that mean for you? What do you
Yeah.
turn I should into I have the opportunity to? And that's
Yeah.
really going to help you stay connected to a lot of how to make the right decisions through the process.
Before we go to rapid fire questions, how can someone find or connect with you?
A couple different places. So like I said, come over to foundershaven.com, sign up, send your email, and I'll be in the next couple of weeks here connecting with all of you through there. And then also you can come find me. I'm getting more and more active on LinkedIn. You'll start to see my own journey of getting my biggest passion of writing. I'm going to be writing a lot more and putting things out on LinkedIn. And so come over to LinkedIn, Molly Montgomery, interacting with people over there. And then also on Facebook, you can find me there, Molly Montgomery. Or every once in a while I hop on Twitter. So Molly M_CPA over there.
We'll be right back with our rapid fire questions with Molly Montgomery. Discovering when you've found your dream, your passion, your purpose can be really hard to do. We've created a small little guide to help you on that journey. Best of all, the guide is completely free. All you have to do is swing on over to jumblethink.com. You'll see a pop-up window show up, follow the instructions, and you'll get the free How to Know You Found Your Dream guide. While you're at the Jumblethink website, make sure you connect with us. You can do it multiple ways. You can drop us a note through our contact page. You can also find links to our social channels like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and some of the best places to listen to the podcast like Apple Podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio, and now Spotify. We look forward to connecting with you and learning all about your story. Now let's jump into our rapid fire questions with Molly Montgomery. We're back with Molly Montgomery. Molly, are you ready for our rapid fire questions?
As ready as I can be. Let's do it.
Well, here's the first question. The first question is, what is one tip you would give someone with a big idea or dream and they don't know where to start?
Set aside some space, turn off all of your electronics, everything. Tell everyone you're taking some time off, go find a quiet place, coffee shop, wherever you work best, and just have some quiet space to plan out how are you going to make it happen? What is the first step you need to take? And just take action.
What is one change you would like to see in the world?
There's so many.
It's a tough question.
One change, I would say right now, more compassion and connection with each other, understanding that everybody is going through their own journey and giving people the space and love to and support to figure this all out, because there's so much going on in the world and we're all trying to figure it out.
What do you want your legacy to be?
That is such a great question, and I'm not too clear on that. I'm connecting to that as I go through this. Founders Haven, something about the people who are creating something that is impacting the world, helping them understand who they are so that they can truly find the joy in what they're doing and success in what they're doing. There's so much depression and anxiety in the entrepreneurial space, especially in the tech startup world, that it truly is, there's understanding who you are and why you're doing what you're doing, and where the disconnected feeling is coming from, and finding connection in that journey. If I can impact that indefinitely, then that is leaving that kind of a legacy is why I'm here.
That's so good. Where do you find inspiration?
I meditate every day, every morning. Every once in a while, I may miss here or there once or twice, but my morning ritual, I connect to so much during that hour and a half or so. I listen to a lot of inspiring podcasts, a lot of audiobooks. I read a lot. I don't watch TV. I haven't turned TV on since, 2009, 2010. So I don't have any of that in my life. I seek out inspiration. I'm very connected. I have a very spiritual side, a very, I pray, I meditate, I journal. And through that, I connect to I connect to an energy that is just deeply inspiring. So a lot of that is fueled by other people who are fueled by inspiration. So I connect to what other people are up to as well.
What is one book you think every dreamer or entrepreneur should read, and why?
The first few that come to mind. So the first one that was a major game changer for me was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
And Seed of the Soul by Gary Zukov. Those two have completely shifted my entire existence. So that's more on the personal development, spiritual journey side of things, finding connection in your journey. And then I know you said one. So,
That's fine. You're fine. Yeah.
I would say Pitch Anything was a huge, significant tool for me in figuring out, learning the whole sales thing.
Okay.
Yeah, those are a couple.
What is one tool that is significant for the success of your business?
Whether or not this is what you think I'm going to say, but meditation.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is one habit you find helpful in your life as an entrepreneur?
I know. It's funny that's it. I mean, well, so a morning ritual. I think
Yeah.
a morning ritual, and and that starts with at night I turn my phone on Do Not Disturb. I completely turn it off. I don't put the Do Not Disturb button on. I literally put it on airplane mode. So there's nothing that's coming through my phone.
Yeah.
I turn it on airplane mode. Probably I try to do it around 10 o'clock at night, sometimes a little bit earlier. And then that sets the stage for getting a good night's sleep and having my personal space. And then I don't turn it on for a couple hours after I wake up. And keeping that space for my morning it's huge. I recommend it.
I think that leads into our next question pretty well, which is, how do you start and finish your day?
Oh, it's so funny. Yes. So I love it. I wake up and I started tracking my sleep. So I've realized how much of an impact that has on me and my ability to perform and getting into that creative space. My sleep is so important. So, I check in on how did I sleep last night? And then I go right to the kitchen, have a full glass of lemon water. I put on some hot water and I make myself a cup of mushroom coffee, because too much caffeine really impacts it. I can't have too much caffeine. I've really been evaluating. More than 40 milligrams is too much for me. That may sound kind of geeking out on numbers here, but I've figured that out. Just enough caffeine to get me going. And then I sit down and I journal for a bit. I'll meditate for 20 to 25 minutes, maybe journal some more, because that's where a lot of ideas will start to come through, or stuff that I'm working through. And then I set the stage for the day. I figure out what is everything that's on my to-do list, and what are my priorities, what are the main goals of what I'm working toward, and what do I need to accomplish today and this week to keep things moving, and just set that up before I go in and see what's going on in my inbox. So once I set the stage for the day and figure out my plan, then I go in and open up my email and get started for the day.
If you weren't doing what you were doing today, what would you be doing?
That's hard to answer, because I've put so much intention around doing what I want to be doing. So there's not much that would be different, other than I love to travel. And I try to leave the country at least once a year.
Yeah.
So probably if I could, something related to travel. I spending a couple months of just packing up and wandering around the world for a while. I would love to do that.
Our last rapid fire question is, what is one dream you're still wanting to fulfill in your own life?
I have an absolute dream of giving a TED Talk. A TED Talk
Oh, that's cool.
that
Yeah.
that just makes an impact. Talking back to the legacy and the impact conversation. There's a message that just wants to find its way through me, and there's something about a TED Talk that is just a huge dream of mine right now. So
That's very cool.
I know it'll happen. I when or how or what, I don't, but it's on my radar.
Before we end today's episode, what's one last thought you want to leave us?
I would say back to knowing there's times where I'm working with clients and I see what they're going through and I'm helping them through a certain very specific challenge that as we work through it, we come up with the plan and I see all the struggle and the how difficult some of these things are. And I constantly find myself thinking, if everybody only knew what everybody else was truly dealing with behind closed doors. There's so much that we are all dealing with that don't compare yourself. Just know the challenges and the struggles are part of the process. So don't get down on yourself because things are popping up. Know that that's where the resilience comes from, of knowing, okay, here's another thing, got to get through this. Okay, how are we going to tackle this one? And just keep going. Just keep going. There's always stuff that's going to come up. So don't let it knock you off your track.
Molly, it's been so much fun having you on the podcast. Thanks for taking time out, sharing with us your story, and giving us some great insights into the world of entrepreneurships and startups.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Michael. I really enjoyed this.
Once again, we want to thank today's guest, Molly Montgomery, for taking time out to share her story. As always, you can find links to her social channels and her website at jumblethink.com in her episode notes. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with this thought. We believe that you were created for purpose and destiny, that you have something special inside you that you can offer this world. And you don't have to do it alone. If you need some help, JumbleThink is here to help you. Drop us a note at jumblethink.com/contact. We'd love to hear your story. We'd love to be a part of your story and help you in any way we can on that journey. Above all, I want to encourage you, get out there today, right now, and do something, whether it's small or big, to move that dream and idea one step closer. We're excited to see what you create, so go out there and do something amazing. Thanks again for tuning in, and make sure you check out Thursday's episode.
Les mères de famille, les enfants, peuvent également prendre un moment revitalisant dans quelques mois, lorsque vous aurez bien saisi la technique et que vous serez maître de votre corps. Vous pourrez vous décontracter même en travaillant.